Strictly Sickly is a medical-related talk show. While informed, we are not medical doctors. Any advice given on this show should not be substituted for a professional medical opinion. Always consult your physician before making any changes to treatments or routines.
That's sound advice from Radio Guy. You know, we are not medical doctors.
We are not.
We're not?
No, we are not medical doctors. However, we are pretty smart, and today we're talking about social stigmas related to, different medical conditions, things like that. Correct?
Yeah, totally.
Okay. I don't know.
Totes.
I totes don't run this show.
Yeah.
You are today.
Huzzah.
Have fun.
There you go.
Yeah, we're talking about, illnesses, diseases, that sort of thing that is looked down upon in society. You're judged for having that sort of thing. That's basically the premise of today.
Yeah, so a couple things would be mental health issues, sexual related illnesses like STDs.
I guess it just seems pretty shitty to me anyway that anybody would judge you for being sick.
Well, they do, even just
for
benign things.
Like, isn't that a thing you can't help? Like, can you be mad at somebody for having a cold?
Would you sleep with someone with herpes?
Yeah.
Okay. Most people, if they hear that, they're like, oh, not going to do it.
If they have herpes, it probably means they put out. So.
Well, people forget that there's protections that you can use for stuff like that, and it's just entirely stigmatized.
I think the weird STDs in particular, I don't know. I was joking. I don't know. It depends on the person and the situation and what's going on, things like that. But, I like to think I'm more educated than the average Joe. And as educated as I am, I know that a big percentage of the population have STDs. Yeah. And like I know at least in our education system down here in Texas, we like to act like no one has those, and if you have them,
you're gonna die.
No, you've been
dirty.
You've been sinning, and, you're dirty.
And you're gonna die.
You're dirty and gross, and I don't want to touch you.
They treat the idea of anal intercourse the same as like.
Well, it only became legal in Texas AIDS. In 2003. So
Texas is
shout out to Lawrence v. Texas.
I don't know. I never understood the concept of being mad at that never clicked to me until I heard somebody talking about it one time. And alcoholism is a disease.
Addiction in general, yeah. That was what
we were
going to bring up.
Somebody was like, no, you can't be mad, because have you ever been mad at somebody for being an alcoholic, or does it even though it's wrong in the back of your head, you're like, well, that's something that you kind of choose.
But it also comes with the caveat of you don't choose to be depressed, but you choose how you want to treat that.
Right.
And just because you have an illness doesn't mean you can crap on everyone around you.
Right. So, but there's, I think the point that I was kind of trying to eke out there badly was that there's a grain of, not justification, but there's like a grain of like truth to it. Like, you can be mad at an alcoholic that won't do anything to like help themselves, sort of, right? Yeah. It's still not right. It's still a disease. It's still somebody that needs help. And the way we treat it is getting better than it has in the past because more people recognize it's a disease rather than just somebody's an a-hole. But it's still stigmatized. Like it's still like if somebody's an alcoholic, you think they're a bad person or that they're lazy or they just don't want to get a job, things like that. And that's not necessarily true. There's a lot of people. It's like a real struggle sort of thing.
Yeah, and that's pretty much how it is with a lot of the ones we were going to talk about today. It was just things that aren't their fault, things that are actual diseases, but for some reason, just having that disease and people knowing about it, you're judged and dismissed, and people treat you like crap because, oh, that person has this terrible, stupid depression. They're awful.
Schizophrenia is a big one that makes
Yeah.
people just afraid.
They think that you're going to murder them because you have schizophrenia. That's not how that works, but that's just what the stigma attached to it is oh, they're a homicidal maniac.
I think that's a case where one person ruins it for everybody. You know,
Yeah.
you get one Ted Bundy, one Zodiac killer. Suddenly, everybody with schizophrenia wants to,
Murder
hack you
your
up into
family.
Well, I was
little
going to
pieces.
say that's related to sociopathy or psychopathy. Antisocial personality disorder is what it's actually called. But 1 in 25 people have antisocial personality disorder, and only like 1 in a million wind up being.
I
Serial
don't
killers.
know who would have something like that.
Who knows? But yeah, there's
I think a wider percentage of people our age have that.
yeah, we're all dead inside. It's fine.
I think that just comes with being a realist in today's world.
Yeah.
But depression's a big one.
I've been lucky that I've never had any kind of like stigma other than work, and it's not direct. I feel like I couldn't just be open about like, hey, I need to take a mental health day. Like I can't do, like if there was no stigma with it, then you could call into work.
Like I'm having a mental health day. It's still health.
Like
I need a mental
like
health
if you
day.
Weren't you talking with Emilio about that?
Yeah, and I'm just speaking from the perspective of as an American. If you lined up 10 Americans side by side and said, hey, if you called into work today and told them you want you just want to call in today because you're having like a bad mental health day or you're depressed or whatever, you don't want to get out of bed, would that be what you told them on the phone, or would you say you have a cold or an appointment or something like that?
Stomachache or something like that, yeah.
9 out of 10 of them are going to say, no. I'm going to be like, I got to take the kids to Gymboree or whatever. You know, it's no one's going to call and be like, I'm just not feeling it today, man.
Because people think you're a wuss if you do.
Yeah. Instead
I'm
of
not
recognizing it as you have a mental health problem and it's a real problem just like any other health issue.
Yeah,
and
I'd
call
say
in for it.
Yeah, I'd say half the time that I actually call into work and use sick time, it's actually for like mental, like I just don't have it in me that day or whatever. And I'm not actually like sick. Like I don't get like sick very often, like the flu, you know, a sudden illness or acute illness, I guess. I don't get that a lot. So when I call in, it's that, but I have never once ever been like, oh yeah, I can do this thing. But other than that, like I've never had friends or family, and I talk pretty openly about my mental health stuff, and nobody's been like, oh, you're a horrible person. So I've lucked out.
Yeah, I've had it's not you're a horrible person. It's just, well, stop being sad. What's your problem? Just, you gotta smile and think happy thoughts.
I do get that.
Yeah.
You're just being lazy and you don't want to work or parent is usually the one that gets thrown at me.
Yeah.
You should go outside, take a walk, exercise more.
Yeah.
I don't get stuff like that. I just get, obviously, you're too lazy to do the stuff you need to do.
Yeah.
Allie says, there are days I feel awful and can't get out of bed, but it's easier to just say I'm throwing up than I'm having endometriosis and fibro when I can't walk. Yeah, pretty much any chronic illness they're not going to trust.
No.
But you know what? This isn't a defense of people that are stigmatizing it, but I think a lot of it has to do with being able to relate to what somebody's going through. So it's easier for her to call in and say like I'm throwing up because almost everybody's had a stomach bug. And if you tell them you have a stomach bug, they're like, oh, shit, okay, I get it. I wouldn't want to go to work either. But if you're talking to somebody that's never dealt with real depression, clinical depression, or whatever, then it's easy for them to disconnect and not really understand like what you're going through. It's that walk a mile in somebody's shoes sort of thing. It's like that really crappy comment. I made that, and I didn't mean it as a crappy comment. But I got burned or something happened, and I was like, oh, you know, I can't imagine, like, what it's like to hurt like that all the time. I'd, like, hurt my hand or something. You can tell it that. I don't remember exactly what I said, but...
I don't remember.
Oh, I remember it's the one where you were sick and
Yeah, you
like,
were
"No,
throwing
no."
up.
Oh,
And I've been throwing up for 2 years on a daily basis. And you came and you sat one of the couches in my bedroom, and me and Steven were sitting there, and you sat down and you went, I've been throwing up for like a week. Now I know what it's like to be you. I was like, grumble, grumble. I didn't say anything, but I was like, I know he knows better than that. And that's why I didn't get mad, because I knew you knew better.
Yeah, and that's not what I meant. What I meant was a week was bad enough. I couldn't imagine
2 years.
how freaking horrible it would be to just do that every day, like forever. but it came out as like, oh yeah, we're on the same level
Yeah.
now, which was totally not what I meant. But I understand it coming out but that is a problem. I think like a lot of times when we think somebody's stigmatizing something, or they're not meaning it that way. They're trying to relate, or they're trying to show empathy.
And they're doing it poorly.
Yeah,
they're
like
choosing the
Allie.
wrong
Allie
words.
does that. I love Allie to death, but she does that verbal thing too. I know she's watching. That's why
I
I'm
do
picking
it
on
too. But my least favorite people are the converts. The people that have had an illness
And
or
something
depression
worked for
and
them.
something worked for them, and now they're pushing this down your throat. Oh, I was
Yeah.
depressed and I went outside and I started jogging. Well, your depression had a different component than mine, and I'm glad that worked for you, but I have tried that and
Yeah.
it did not work for me.
Or the people who just assume that you haven't tried anything at all, and they're like, "Have you tried this,
I've
and
tried
this?"
everything
And I've
short
tried-
of sacrificing a black cat at midnight in
Yeah.
a graveyard, and that's only because I like cats. I would do it. I've tried everything short of actual voodoo.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the men, go outside, exercise. Okay, you think I wouldn't go after all the low hanging fruit? Oh, you don't have a good relationship with God. I got that once. I've
Yeah.
tried to pray it away.
Oh God, I hate that one.
That makes it worse.
Then
And
there's
It's like, oh, hey, no.
yeah.
People close to me have thrown that one at me. Well, do you ever think it's because you don't go to church anymore? No, because I was sick when I went to church every Sunday and read my Bible and prayed every day. So I really don't think, oh, well, God's just testing you. Well, then I don't like him.
Yeah, screw him.
And there's the opposite side of that where you are taking like medicine, antidepressants or whatever, antipsychotics, whatever you're on, and then there are people who criticize you for taking
being on
those meds.
Oh my God. Okay, so I guess I have put up with a little bit of it, not directly though, not like in a nasty way, but it was when I wasn't on meds. It's you should take meds for the it's we can't deal with you. You should take meds. Took the meds. Yeah, it helped, but it also caused other problems,
Adverse reactions that were worse.
that make you kind of a basket case. And I was like, hey, for my particular case, like, and I'm not saying antidepressants are bad. Like, if they work for you, they work for you, and that is great. You do that. But they don't work for, sometimes the adverse reactions are worse than.
Not worth it. Yeah.
Yeah. In my case, yeah, I didn't go off my antidepressants because I'm like, I don't need them or I can beat the depression on my own. It's that the depression wasn't worse than the anxiety that the med caused in the other side effects I was having, like a laundry list of them.
The main one that got me off of antidepressants was because I didn't feel depressed anymore because I felt nothing.
I didn't like that so much. I liked not having outbursts anymore. Like I didn't get angry.
He also didn't get happy.
But
There was no
I
pleasure
felt
from anything.
no
Yeah.
freaking joy.
I explained it like living inside of a cotton swab. That's how I
Yeah.
felt.
There were tons of like sexual side effects that I
Yeah.
absolutely could not just
Deal with.
stand.
Yeah.
Because I recently went off the Zoloft because of that laundry list of side effects, and I had to weigh, okay, is it worth going off of them and having the big highs and lows, or am I okay with never being sad but never being happy again?
Yeah.
For a little while, I wasn't so sure. I was like, I might be okay with this.
One of the reasons I never wanted to, there were two major reasons I never wanted to go on antidepressants in the first place, and one of them was and Julie mentioned it in the comments, like a lot of people in my family have mental health issues, and I saw them go through a ton of different antidepressants, and I saw what happened with them on the, everybody reacts different or whatever, and I was like, oh my God, and mainly it was the zombie thing, and I was like, I would rather just
Be sad.
be this. The other thing is I'm very like, I know it's not a thing anymore, but I still think of it that way, like left brain, right brain. But I'm like a creative type. Like I write and play music and stuff like that. And I was thinking if I took the meds that it was going to somehow like push that down, like I wouldn't be as creative anymore. Luckily, and that's not one of the reasons I quit. Like I didn't have that problem. Actually, I got more creative and stuff when I was doing that because it kind of moved. The depression, it turned out, wasn't Like,
It was kind of a hindrance to your creative process.
yeah, and where I thought like, oh, it's this suffering that makes me this way. It makes it to where I can create and stuff like that. And it turns out it was more of an obstacle. Like, and once that was out of the way, I was able to do more stuff. Unfortunately, there were so many other things that were wrong with it that I was like, it's not that big of a hindrance.
Yeah.
I don't know. I still kind of want to go back on some kind of medication, but I want to go on a different medication, and you have to play that medication roulette.
Well,
thing.
and I wanted to add as a disclaimer that with antidepressants, with any SSRI, that's a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, they don't know how they exactly work. They're guessing. I had to try 12 different antidepressants, and after the 11th one, I stopped trying for about 5 years.
Yeah.
And finally, I went on one that worked for me. And Allie says I had 2 of my meds to put together when my hair fell out. I was on a med called Lamictal, which is an antipsychotic because they were under the impression I was bipolar due to my severe insomnia. And it made my hair fall out, and I dropped that one real fast. And Catherine says that's how polypharmacy happens. The doctors just prescribe more meds to fix the side effects.
Yeah.
Haiti says one antidepressant I took on Wednesday, and I woke up on Friday. That ended the medication quickly.
And also, some of them have like limited lifespans on how they work. When I first started taking Lexapro is a really, really good one, and that's what they start you on. Now, like their first guess is usually Lexapro because it treats anxiety and depression, and it works fast. Like
They'll
it'll
throw it at you for OCD too. That's why I took it.
but it gets cycling in your system within like a week, where everything else takes like 30 days. And when I first started taking that, I was good for a solid 6 months. Like I wasn't a zombie or anything. I was just like fixed. It was great. It's 6 months. I hit this like wall where all of a sudden it wasn't working for me anymore. And it took a little while for me to put 2 and 2 together. But every time I was taking it, and what it did is it kind of went into it swung.
Reverses.
Every time I would take one, about 20 minutes later, I'd have like these massive, massive panic attacks. And I thought like just my anxiety was getting worse. And naturally their reaction was, we'll give you more of it. And that, oh my God. And then they switched me over to Zoloft. And Zoloft absolutely doesn't work for me.
And see, that's the one that works for me.
That's the one that numbed me out completely.
Julie says, I've never not been depressed. I don't know what that feels like or should feel like. I don't know how much is depression, how much is a troubled life, so I have serious mood and trust issues. Yeah, I never know if I'm legitimately just brain chemical depressed or if I'm depressed because my life situation sucks.
I've never not been depressed, so I think it's just I was born this way.
Allie says, I had a positive reaction and went absolutely nuts when I was doing Zolodex treatments, and the antidepressants kept me from ramming my car into a wall.
Yeah, it's good. I'm not saying antidepressant.
They're great for some people.
Yeah.
You just really have to do
You
the
have to
work.
find the right one, and you're going to find a lot of wrong ones first.
You have to
And
do the legwork.
I found one that was right, but stopped working. My situation changed. The other thing with me is I realized my anxiety is more of a problem than my depression.
And anxiety is also one that's stigmatized. You're just overreacting.
Oh, yeah.
Why don't you just relax? And
Yeah, it's like just
God, if I had
don't worry about it.
If I had a
Just don't
quarter
worry
for
about
every
it.
time someone had looked me dead in the eye and gone, just don't worry about it, or my guilt complex, just don't feel guilty.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm on it.
Or
I'm
I
doing that
have
now.
really bad social anxiety, so if I go out in public,
Just
I
make
have
friends.
panic attacks. They're like, well, why don't you just calm down? It
Have
doesn't
you
matter.
have you tried breathing?
Yeah, have you tried breathing? I mean, just...
And one of the things I like is conventions. The Dragon Con one we go to, one of the years I went, if you went to the I guess it was like handicap aid place, they would give you a card, and if you were having a panic attack, you could hold it up, and they come get you, and they take you somewhere else, which is
Should have
great.
gotten that because I had one at Dragon Con.
The problem is going to get the card if you have social
Yeah.
anxiety.
Yeah, I mean, it's just as bad as going and asking for more ketchup. At Jack in
That's
the
the
Box.
thing I can't do.
At Dragon Con, you guys all stepped outside so that some of you could have a smoke, and I decided to stay inside because it was so hot out there.
I remember
and then I
you
got
having the panic
crowded,
attack.
and you guys came back to me just against the wall, facing it. Just it's like it's not something that I can just go. I shouldn't just think about it. It'll be fine.
The other thing to mention is like, and Julie said something about it, like she's never not been depressed, even on the medication. It doesn't fix it.
Yeah.
It makes
It makes you better able
it makes
to
it
cope
manageable.
with
And
it.
and for me, what it did is it changed my reactions to those feelings. So before, where when I'm not on the medication and I'm having some kind of like social anxiety or anxiety, I usually get really quiet and isolate and reserve. The problem is when I'm on those meds, I feel things differently. And so I react to my anxiety more like, first off, I'm an asshole. And,
Oh, really?
yeah. Well, no,
I'm just joking.
I didn't think about it until you just brought up Dragon Con, though. But like, I pretty much almost ruined that vacation. And that was basically just a 3-day long panic attack for me, and I was on those meds at the time, and I was not coping well with it. I have social anxiety, but I deal with it okay off the meds. That's not the thing I need to treat most of the time.
Catherine says it's sometimes more depressing when people try med after med and they don't work. You feel unfixable. My friends are all high anxiety and have depression. I think I'm a moth. Well, I think you'd be the lamp,
Yeah.
and you're attracting the
moth.
the depressed moths.
Yeah.
But I just think that our generation especially has a high amount, not just of depression and anxiety, but of people that are willing to admit to it, just because that stigma has died down a lot.
Yeah. There's less people saying you don't need to be on that antidepressant med. You need to get off that medication and just go have some sunlight.
As a whole,
Which-
things have improved.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They need to
mental
improve
health.
more.
Most mental health stuff has improved, but addiction is a mental health thing, and that has got worse in my opinion, because it's so bad so much that
You can't get treatment for it because if you ask for treatment, they block you up.
they'll lock you up, they'll take away your kids, they'll make sure you never get a job again. They just treat you like a piece
Garbage.
of
You
trash.
You can never
yeah.
get pain medication in the hospital again or see a doctor. If you admit to that, you're red flagged forever.
Yeah, and I totally blame the stigma around being an addict around government and authority types and stuff like that, because we would rather criminalize it than actually treat it. In
Thanks, Ronald Reagan.
well, in in the, what country is it that they decriminalized
Oh, I
it?
forget.
And
It's a South American country, but yeah, they completely decriminalized and addiction just dried up.
yeah, they just started treating you. Go to court, like you still get arrested for like drugs and stuff,
But they take
then
care
you
of
go to
you.
court and they go, okay, we're gonna give you free health care to go deal with this thing, and then you go deal with it, and they check up on you and stuff.
And they don't put you in nasty, dank, state-run facilities. They put you somewhere with pretty things to look up at and people to
Yeah,
socialize
they
with.
actually treat you, and it turns out it was like a 99.9% people not going and buying crack anymore.
And I hate the idea that addiction is just a willpower thing, because it's not. It becomes a completely compulsive behavior. It's like telling someone with OCD,
To just stop being OCD.
Stop flipping those lights. It does not work like that. It is a compulsive thought, and it lives in the back of your head, and it'll tell you, go find the drug, go do
I
the
do want to
drug.
say
And
not
the exclusion of
not
everything.
not all addiction is created equal, though. Some people are just chemically addicted to something, and once they get it out of their system, they can just stop. Like, I've known people that have just put stuff down. Like, I've smoked cigarettes.
But most real addicts are psychologically and
Right.
physically.
I'm just saying there are two different types.
Yeah.
And I think one of the places that the stigma comes from is that some people have dealt with one. They're like, well, I was able to just stop drinking. I'm like, that's great for you. You're not the same as this person
'Cause
who's got a mental addiction.
Back in the day when I was young and doing stuff like that, I had people that were able to just put it down
Yeah.
and walk away without a second thought.
I've never been addicted to anything except eating. Eating's the only addiction
Soda.
that I can't put down. And the thing behind it is it's like, it's tasty, it's delicious, whatever. I'm a stress eater, but the thing is it's something you have to do to survive. Like, so you can kind of logic it away. Like, I don't need to smoke crack, so I'm never gonna get like, I'm like, I don't need that, but I'm gonna have to eat at some point.
And for somebody else, they might need that crack to get through the day. Like,
Yeah.
I
Or
can't
pain
leave my house.
pills
and-
are a big one.
Yeah.
Some people need those to live their life. If
Right.
they also happen to be an addict,
If you live in pain, yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of a double-edged.
I really don't think addicts should be precluded from having their chronic pain issues treated, which they
Yeah.
are if you admit to it.
Yeah, so then you end up having to lie to doctors in order to get help for it. and then it just kind of sends you down another
Rabbit
road.
hole,
And,
yeah.
and there's no getting back from it the way that they're treating people now, because if you go in there and say, I have a problem, but I still need help, instead of getting that help, they go, well, that's too bad for you.
It gets really
And-
bad. When I was trying to get Caitlin help for her psychological issues when she was 5 or 6, I admitted that my family had a history of drug dependency. And not only would they not talk to me anymore, they refused to treat my daughter.
Jeez.
Because then the meds that she would have had to take for her ADHD would have been in my house.
Yeah, and then you might have taken
Yeah.
them. And
So just because it runs in my family, they assume that
Yeah.
they can't even treat her, which is ridiculous because what did she do? She's
Right.
5.
the stigma somehow passed through the generations.
And it does.
Yeah.
It does. I can't tell you how many times I was at an NA meeting with my mom and everyone looked at me like I was already gone. Your mom's that, so you're that too.
Well, there's that thing. Well, there's a proven thing between if your father was an alcoholic, you'll be an alcoholic, which is crap. But there is that.
But that also proves that there's a genetic link.
Yeah.
And it's not your fault.
And so,
Well, my friend, we'll call him Rick, because I don't
Rick.
know. I don't know if he would want me to, it's a
disclose-
friend of mine, right? But he has like a bad history of alcoholism on his dad's side of the family. I've known him forever now. He has never ever drank alcohol or taken anything more than what he had to, like pain pill, like he would rather just take ibuprofen for his broken arm
Yeah.
or whatever.
Mhm.
But because of that, because he knows that that's so bad, he's just like, I'll never ever ever touch it, because he's afraid that like one drink is going to make it to where he can't put it down. And I kind of commend it. That's a hard decision to make, like, because he's got like a social stigma with that. Me and him are like best friends. Me and a group of people are all best friends, and we'll razz him about being a pussy. Like, have a drink, loosen up, whatever. And really, we shouldn't do that. Like, because he might be right.
Yeah.
One drink might be the thing where it's like, oh, I live in my truck now. I'm divorced. I don't know, but it's good that like he had that knowledge of that, and because he doesn't have to deal with, like, that's a problem he doesn't have to mess with. But if he was able to keep himself from doing that sort of thing, does it still carry over to his spawn? Or
who knows if it's a genetic thing.
So me and my mom are real, like, I hear her talking about her former addiction. She's been clean for decades now. And me and her talk about it a lot because we do want to reduce the stigma. But sometimes there's certain people I don't want to say that to. Is, oh, yeah, I used when I was 18.
Because then they just treat you like you're crap, and oh, well, you got involved with drugs, you're a drug addict.
Well, and the reason I started using is real psychologically fucked. Everybody kept telling me it's not a disease, it's a willpower thing, and I believed them, and so I went, well, I'm going to prove it. And I proved them wrong. Catherine says, most people I've heard being addicted and can't walk away are covering up either chronic pain or psychological pain. It's like they get stuck in not that age and never deal with the root of the problem and never grow as a person, not just drugs, but alcohol too. Well, yeah, and other addictions too, sex, love, self-harm, anything like that. It's very often to cover up something else. They're not getting proper treatment for something wrong with them. I'm sure there's cases where there's just addicts because they're addicts, but I think most of them are really, they have something very deeply wrong they're trying to fix.
And with the current stigma surrounding it, it just makes it worse for them to actually get the help that they need. So then they're just stuck in the loop of addiction and being treated like crap.
But I was going to move on to the next topic before we spend the whole day on this.
Yeah.
And
oh, come on, you're only 29 minutes in.
yeah, we have like 6 more things to talk about.
All
Yeah.
right, okay.
So one of them we're going to bring up is gender dysphoria. Happy Pride Month.
Happy Pride Month. Woo.
Because there's a lot of debate right now over whether that's a mental health issue. It's very much a physical health issue. Because like you brought up earlier in the DSM, even when it was in there, it said the treatment was...
Oh, yeah, the treatment for it was the gender reassignment surgery. That was their recommended treatment for people who had gender dysphoria. So even if it was treated as a mental illness, the treatment that led to a cure was the thing they wanted anyway. So then they took it off of the mental health illness thing. It's no longer considered a mental health problem. and now it's just transgenderism. And so
And people always bring up the same thing when I mention someone's transgender. Well, genetically, they'll always be. Yet, they have. And there's a website I like to go to. It's the NCBI. It's just straight up medical research. So these are just.
They're peer reviewed. It's different than just
It's
Google.
just tests. It's the controls they used.
And the
it's
results.
what the results were. And they went in and they did fMRIs, functional fMRIs, for people to see where their brains light up. And if you're a trans man, if you identify as a man, your brain lights up like a male brain. If you're a trans woman, your brain lights up like a woman's brain. In your brain, you are the other thing. So it frustrates me when people get so put in their DNA. Shut up.
They're like, they don't have a Y chromosome. So yeah, it's exhausting, and I feel lots of feelings about this specific subject, but yeah, it's a very stigmatized thing if you tell anybody that you have gender dysphoria. I mean, I'll just use my own personal example. When I told my parents that I wanted to transition to male, I got so much crap about it that it eventually broke my spirit down, and I quit trying because people were just so shitty about it. And the people who
Not all people.
not all people
Not all
but
brads.
they were so bad about it, and the people around me, besides like you guys, everybody was so bad about it that it just broke me down to nothingness, where I was like, I don't even care anymore, I'll just live my life unhappy. And so the fact that people have to live through that, and then a lot of people don't live through that, a lot of people go and they off themselves because they aren't accepted.
And people talk about the suicide rate being so high. It's like, you're the reason.
Yeah. If you weren't treating people like crap and saying that, well, it's not true, you just act like you're a man, or you just want to pretend to be a man, or, oh, you just wish that you could live a male life or whatever. It has nothing to do with social standing and the way that people act. People can act however they want, regardless of whatever gender they are. It's my body doesn't match what it should match. And that's the most important part, but that's the part that's stigmatized. So.
It has to do with your brain and how it works, which everything does. Everything has to do with your brain and how it works. And I hate that our medical industry treats the brain and body like it's separate.
Yeah,
it's not. It's all in your body.
Well, I hate how things is specific. Is like your own medical stuff is still up to the court of public opinion. Like, why do I care
what you think about my body?
why do I give two F's about whether or not you call yourself a boy, a girl, or a can of beans? It doesn't matter. Are you a cool person? Do I like hanging out with you? And do you return the shopping cart back to the place, or do you just leave it next to my car?
Do you smell
like
beans?
the other douche canoe? It doesn't matter. Like,
what does it matter to you what genitals I have?
And
That's
that's
what
what
I
I would-
asked my dad, because my dad was giving me crap about it, and I was like, I'm still gonna act like the exact same person. So why do you care whether I have a penis or not?
because he's secretly worried that dicks are delicious.
I
That's what
guess.
your dad's problem is.
Because
I think that's the problem with all homophobes.
yeah, because if the thing is that you're just want to transition over to a different physical appearance, that doesn't mean you're going to change as a person. You're still the same person, so what does it matter whether I have ovaries or testicles?
What other people are worried about is that they're going to accidentally sleep with someone. They're going to see someone hot, and they're going to bang them, and then they're going to find out they used to be a man.
And then they're going to think they're gay.
yeah.
And then they're going to be like, am I gay? And it's like, look, if just being close to a penis
Makes you want to suck that penis.
makes you want to suck that penis,
You
you're
already-
probably not straight.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're really focusing on the wrong issue here. You're already gay. You're just angry about it. And maybe if people didn't act like that, you wouldn't be so angry about it.
Yeah. And maybe if you didn't treat gay people so poorly, you wouldn't be worried about gay people being treated so poorly. It's kind of cycle of life. Quit
It's
being
like
crap to people.
All the dudes I hear that are homophobic, well, what if a guy touches me in a bar? You mean the way you treat women?
Yeah. Just say, sorry, not interested. And quit touching girls' butts when they walk by.
Yeah, like my turning point was like I was at a bar and a dude bought me a drink. Everybody's like, ugh, and I'm like, dude, that's awesome.
I'm flattered.
I didn't pay for that drink. Like, he wasn't like, hey, you have to blow me now, because Because that's how the guy thinks. He's like, oh, if I buy a girl a drink at the bar,
She'll bully me in the bathroom.
I'm expecting sex. If a guy buys me a drink at the bar, like, that's not my worry, because that's not what I'm thinking when I buy someone a drink. Like, I would like them to,
but I'm just trying to get to know you. I'm going to be friendly.
but, but I also just buy people drinks.
Yeah.
I don't know. It really is a reflection of their own thing. Like, I think all stigmas are that way. Like, if you're treating somebody a certain way, like, I don't like you because of your mental health problem.
You're scared of it being you.
There's something in your life that you're reflecting on, and you don't like the way that looks on somebody else, and so you're worried that that's you. And it could be true or it could not be true. It's just my kind of opinion on it.
I don't know. I've got a lot of mental health stuff, but even before I knew I had mental health stuff, my mom had some severe things. And I remember thinking, God, she's lazy. God, she doesn't care. Why is she so lazy? Why won't she do anything? And that's all I ever thought until I heard that she had depression. And then it clicked and I went, oh, my bad. And now I have depression. I don't blame her for that.
Yeah.
It's just kind of...
I hope you don't mind me bringing this. Kat said, but they make it so hard to transition. If that's the treatment, it shouldn't be so hard. But other than your family stuff, you were pretty positive about it when you were free, because you, like, immediately got to go see a doctor, and they had a plan, and, like, you were pretty optimistic about the process.
Yeah.
Like, you weren't going to have a real hard time with it, and you don't even really have medical insurance.
The hard time with it was the money, I think.
Yeah, the money, and whenever I went, they said that I had hypothyroidism, so they couldn't get me started on hormones until I had that treated first. But they can't treat that there, so I have to go see a regular doctor, and I don't have health insurance.
But I just
But if you
it wasn't
didn't have-
it wasn't a bureaucratic thing. It wasn't like they were trying to
any
block you.
comorbidities, if you didn't have any other illnesses, you would be able to do the hormones through the place she went. The surgeries, would be up to
extra
you,
money, yeah.
but they would treat with the hormones and counseling, which is very good, because I think more than transitioning, which I do believe trans people need, I think more than that, they need support.
Yeah. Because that's when I gave up, was the fact that I had pretty much lost all of the support. So that's whenever I gave up on it, because my plan was to go get medicine for the hypothyroidism, get on the hormones, start saving up money. That way I could afford the surgeries. That was the plan.
I was just really surprised like when we first heard and everything, and then you went to the doctor and everything came and you were telling us about it. Like, my first thought was, like, in Texas?
Yeah, that was my thought too. I was like, there's no way this is going to happen in Texas. This is
I
gonna be
thought you were going to have to
nightmare.
move out of state,
Well, there's like one place here that does is the AIDS Outreach Center. They help people with AIDS mostly, and then they also help people with, like, pregnancy problems, and then transgender people. That's what they focus on. They're here in Fort Worth, and they're awesome. They're free, but they can only do so much. So, but yeah.
That'll be the next thing to fund it after, they get done sticking it to Planned Parenthood.
Yeah. But yeah, since that is the treatment option is gender reassignment surgery. But is it Medicaid or Medicare? I can't remember. One of them has decided to start covering
Medicaid.
Sexual reassignment surgeries.
Medicaid
Holy
has started
crap.
decided
Yeah.
to.
That's nuts.
So that's going to start being covered by Medicaid.
I mean, that's good. It's
Well,
just super surprising.
There's some stuff in there that I'm
yeah.
unsure about, because Medicaid is very much a states' rights issue, and that's why Texas didn't expand its Medicaid when the Obamacare came out. I forget the actual name for that.
ACA.
The ACA came out, is because you remember I didn't qualify for the ACA because I'm too poor. They expected my state to cover me with Medicaid, but because Texas,
I don't know what's happened in the past 3 months here in Texas, but there's a bunch of crap I never thought. Like, they expanded medical marijuana. Like,
because our state's turning purple.
Yeah, well, but I mean, not like in the actual office part where it matters. But, like, there's all kinds of weird things. And Ted Cruz has been doing good stuff. I don't know. Like, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
He's still a crappy human.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not pulling punches. But
He's a great lizard. He's a horrible human.
But yeah, anyway, Medicaid's going to start covering that. It still doesn't cover things that are considered elective. So you still can't get, like, breast implants because that's not necessary to be a woman. So it's whatever they deem. So it's mostly just the hormones and then the genitals. That's pretty much all they'll cover. But
it's something.
it's something. So
It's a step in the right freaking direction.
which means that the stigma is kind of dying down a bit, I guess. Kinda. We're still not allowed to use the bathrooms, but we still can't pee in peace. But
Oh man, I hate to say it, but I was really confused at 'cause I guess Starbucks went to gender-neutral bathrooms, and just like out of habit, I went looking for the men's, or they're side by side, but there were these like really weird symbols, and like it took me like a good minute and a half to realize it didn't matter. But I was like, I don't know which symbol I am.
where do I go?
I was like, I don't understand. I went to one door and I'm like, okay, I'm not a werewolf. And then I went to the other one and I'm like, I'm not a mummy either. Wait, what?
What am I supposed to do?
Oh shit, I get it. Like it took a minute and I felt like really bad. And I was like, oh crap.
I love the gender neutral bathrooms. Now I don't have to feel uncomfortable anywhere.
But I did this stupid thing where I was like, I'll wait and see who comes out of what. Like it was it was this dumb moment where like I just wasn't thinking, and suddenly like it dawned on me at one point. I was like, oh, I can piss anywhere I want.
It doesn't matter.
Catherine wants to know if they cover the mastectomy. I don't think they would. I don't think that'd be.
I don't know. I didn't actually look into that.
Yeah, we'd have to find out.
I think unless you have like breast cancer or something like that, I think that is elective, but I'm not 100% sure.
Because I mean, there are dudes that have dude tits.
Somebody
It's fine.
Google it. We need the answer now.
But yeah, after that we were gonna discuss, people who are stigmatized for like
Erectile dysfunction,
for sexual problems,
Sexual
STDs,
problems,
that sort of things,
and
because that's still very stigmatized. And because if you have sex, you'll get chlamydia and die.
No,
that's what our sex ed class was in Arkansas. Was just here's pictures of gonorrhea. Don't have sex. That was pretty much what our entire sex ed
abstinence.
Yeah.
But this
Isn't that what they're teaching at Caitlin's school?
Yeah,
abstinence only. Yes,
only, which does not work.
But this is a big argument right now in some of the Facebook tests Facebook groups I run in. Is crap. I lost my train of thought. Is how to talk about STDs and whether someone has them, and not to ask someone, "Are you clean?"
Yeah,
because that kind of denotes that if you're not, you're dirty.
Like, are you positive for
anything?
anything?
Or to instead ask if they've had recent testing done.
Yeah.
Positive makes it sound a little too.
Are you positive? I am.
I'm HIV positive.
Man, I'm pretty positive that I'm getting in your pants.
I mean, you could ask, have you had testing done recently, and what were the results? Or
and people
you could
talk
just
so
say,
much about, oh, it's stupid for you to get offended by phrasing, but it can be very rude.
I mean, imagine someone walking up, are you clean or are you filthy? Like, I'm clean.
I am filthy.
What is like? What do you consider filthy? Well,
I am
if you
so
have,
dirty.
Oh, God, because I mean, I can't remember exactly what the numbers are, but like herpes, for example, most people already have some strain of herpes. If you ever had a cold sore, you have herpes.
Hashtag
and
not all brats.
there's a lot of people that just have herpes, and it's not a big deal. It doesn't matter. Most people have it. Most people don't even notice it. So, I mean, I don't understand why there's just they have herpes, disgusting. Like, you probably have herpes and you just don't know it.
or HPV or something.
Yeah.
Because it runs as other illnesses.
You know, one of the reasons it took so long for there to be an HPV vaccine is because it's a stigmatized illness. Right? It was only after a lot of money from cancer research got put into it that it got lumped in and got enough research to get a vaccine.
And thanks to the vaccine, numbers of HPV-related cancers have tanked.
No autism?
No autism from the vaccine.
No,
so you got
HPV sickness?
Caitlin has had her HPV. She had to get two shots over the course of like 3 months. She got hers.
Is that one you need a booster for? Or is that?
I think the 3-month one is considered the booster, but
Yeah.
Gotcha.
it'd be like going in for the polio thing where you have to go in and get or tetanus, a couple different ones. But
when I got mine, they just sat me
But
down
the thing
for 4
is
shots on my arm.
they could attenuate vaccines for other like herpes, certain versions of herpes and things like that. They could do stuff like that, but nobody will fund it. Like they have the hardest time getting funding for research.
Because they're like, that's gross. They just need to stop having herpes.
Yeah, because that's their solution.
Attenuated, but that's something anti-vaxxers fear is attenuated vaccines because that means there is
I used the wrong word
a
because
lesser
I'm
version
not a
of the
medical
virus
doctor.
in it.
Not a medical
And then they're shedding. Anyway,
Yeah.
but no, Caitlin got the HPV vaccine and it did nothing. She did not get Guillain-Barré. She didn't get the autism any more than she already had it.
She does do that thing where she drools and just screams a lot for no reason. She's just like, ah! But I know she's clean, so
She's
I don't
also
worry
just
about
a
it.
teenage girl. That's how all teenage girls are. But yeah, there's a lot of the can't get funding for it because they should just stop having that. And
You know
they should
what?
just stop.
There's something that's completely stigmatized I didn't even think about, but birth control.
Yeah.
We just put, or I say we, but as a group, the royal we just put Caitlyn on birth control, not to keep her from getting pregnant.
Oh, because she was vomiting and collapsing once a month.
Yeah, she was having, but
Yeah, that is a stigmatized.
but a lot of people
if you want
lose
birth
their
control just because you want to go have sex all the time.
Yeah, they think if you give your kid birth control, you're just giving them free license to go out and F whoever.
I had a family member that said, "Yeah, put her on birth control, but don't tell her what it is." Like, are you insane?
That is the worst fucking idea
She
ever.
could get a blood clot and not know why.
Yeah.
She has to know not to smoke on birth control. I mean, she has to know that she has some form of protection, but that
Yeah.
it doesn't prevent STDs. She still
Kinda
needs to
need
use a
go
condom.
over the side effects that she might be experiencing.
People need to be aware that their teenagers are going to have sex.
Yeah.
Don't be stupid.
And the abstinence only thing is just a pipe dream that will never happen. And putting people on the abstinence only programs makes people pregnant.
I mean, look at the rates of teen pregnancy in states that run abstinence-only education versus
Yeah.
comprehensive
Our
sex
high
ed.
school, like half of our senior
Yeah.
class was pregnant, and we had the abstinence only. But part of the stigma is also in the schools because, again, I'm going to make fun of myself here. It's a story that we love to tell.
Oh, I love your
story.
funny
I
stories.
love
Does
this
somebody
story.
die? Somebody
this
die?
story
in
is
this?
No, this one
hysterical
is
because you
funny.
were like 25 when you came in my
I was
room
like
and said
25
this to me.
years old, and I was talking to her. We were discussing HIV and AIDS. And I said, but isn't it true that you can get AIDS from somebody just because you shared saliva with them?
Okay, you're not so stupid for this. Because I knew you couldn't get HIV or AIDS from swapping saliva with somebody. But it is true that there is HIV in saliva. It's not a big enough amount
You cannot
to
catch HIV from saliva.
No.
But I was told that in school that if you exchanged any bodily fluids with somebody who had HIV or AIDS, that you would get HIV or AIDS. So until I was 25 years old, I believed that swapping any bodily fluids with them would result in you getting it. And you said, that's not how that works. And that is just how I was taught in school because they had the abstinence only and here's pictures of gonorrhea and don't get this, you'll die, it's bad, you'll be sick forever. And it was just the full stigma of all STDs just grouped together and going, you don't need to learn about that, just don't
What
get
the
it.
F? I don't know if I just went to a really good school or if it was just my ISD or if something happened to schools after I went. But we had sex education and it wasn't like stupid. They did tell you that like the phrasing they used is the only 100% protection from any of that stuff is abstinence. But they
Which
weren't
is true.
They weren't telling they were like like calling condoms safe sex is a misnomer. There is no such as 100%
It is
safe
safer
sex.
sex.
Yeah.
Right. And they taught us that. They also taught us how to put condoms on. And
We never got
Yeah, we didn't get
No,
that.
they taught us the correct way.
You know who did my sex education in high school?
Your mom.
A local preacher came to
Oh,
our
gross.
school and did our sex ed.
Oh,
So
yeah.
our school used to have good sex ed, and then we had a whole bunch of suburban moms get together and go, you shouldn't be teaching our children this, and they pretty much protested until the point that they took sex ed out. And that's why our senior class had half of them pregnant.
But it's funny because even when people know how HIV and AIDS works, they still get paranoid. So my
Yeah.
mom in the mid-90s, right about when the whole HIV thing was dying down, she was working on a patient and she forgot to flip the end of her syringe to lock it off, and she got a needle stick from an HIV-positive patient. So she had to go on the cocktail for about 6 months. Made her really sick. She wouldn't let me touch any of her things. None of them. And I know damn well working in the ER at JPS, she knew how HIV was transmitted. But she did not want me to touch any of her stuff. And I was like, but that's not how that works. I don't care. Don't do it.
Yeah. And there's the people who, if they are HIV or positive or have AIDS or whatever, people just avoid them because they're gross or they're infected or they're dirty. I'm not sure
I don't
what
know.
it is, but people will avoid people who,
I
because
don't
they're
know.
afraid
I
they're
don't,
going to get
see
it.
that as much as I did like in the early
It's a lot
90s.
rarer now.
Yeah.
And
it's
you
better
know what I
now.
think has a lot to do with that?
The internet.
Movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, specifically
and
movies.
famous people getting
Yeah,
HIV.
you have like Philadelphia came out. Magic Johnson got HIV and his
Freaking Eazy-E.
lived easy. Well, he died. That's a bad
I
example.
know, but he got it in Freddie Mercury. So many people got it that people started learning about
but they
it.
started making movies about people that got it and were like,
Oh, The Cure was
Okay,
one I watched when I was a
yeah.
kid with the sad kid that dies at the end.
oh, where he's like, my blood is
Blood is poison,
poison.
yeah.
I remember that. But stupidly enough, fictional movies about stuff like that
Have
brought
made it
more
better.
awareness to
Yeah.
how it's actually transmitted and made. But it goes to show that the cure for all stuff like that is education. Like the cure
Yeah.
for stigmatization of STDs is education about it. The
The
cure for
problem is
mental
people
health.
don't want to be educated.
Yeah.
They don't want to be, or they
That's
don't
why-
want, and they don't want to contribute the money to educate or whatever. Like the reason I think that we don't have better sex ed in school is less about the religious thing, and people don't want their money going to it. So in the schools
reason
are
we won't
largely
fund
just
us having birth
defunded
control.
anyway.
And they think it should be up to the parents. And while I'm okay with that in my house, in a lot of houses, that isn't happening.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go back to some of the comments. Catherine says 1 in 8 people have genital herpes, 1 in 2 have oral herpes.
Yeah.
And am I saying this wrong? Most oral herpes can become genital herpes
I have no clue.
under the right circumstances?
Ha. Even if they're saying nothing's wrong. Yeah, I know she's talking about the birth control. I know hormones are a struggle. Here's birth control. Allie said, Lord, I flipped out when there was some proposed legislation banning birth control. And I was told that there was more important things to worry about than not getting pregnant. They damn well knew I took it for my endo and I wanted to lose my shit. Julie says, does abstinence ever work? Catherine says, even with HPV, my doctor thought I had it. I don't. And my in-law told me to bleach the toilet. Jesus.
Go back up to Aloe's
And
comment,
yes, it can become genital herpes.
above Catherine's up there. Everyone that had chickenpox as a kid will test positive for herpes.
I know I had chickenpox and I didn't test pot.
That's why when you get STD testing, they won't test for it unless you have an actual outbreak or rash that they swab for. And the thing is, though, is
I know, I'm pretty sure they tested me when I was pregnant and I tested negative. But then again, I didn't have a very strong case of
even when you,
chickenpox.
and I think another thing is people think that if you, this is a thing, they think if you have herpes and you sleep with somebody with herpes, you get herpes. It's not true. It's only spreadable during those periods where
It's a flare up.
There's some research to show that you can spread it when you're not having a
It's more rare, though.
But because you don't always know when that's going on.
It could be a very small flare up.
Or it could be about to happen.
Yeah, I'm
Just
not
Yeah.
saying just knock the bottom out of everything without using protection.
Yeah.
That's stupid.
always use protection.
Unless you have a partner that you know and you know your partner's partners and all that sort of, I mean, be smart. Like,
Yeah.
using your brain is the best protection you can use.
But even though the stigma around STDs is getting better, you can still see it if you walk up to somebody and you're like, do you have any STDs? And they just get vehemently defensive about it. Like, no, I don't. That's gross. Why would I have that?
well, I don't think I would want somebody just randomly walking
No,
up to me
I
in the
mean-
street being like, "Hey, you got the clap?"
No. I mean, if you just had a study of people or whatever, you're just like, do you have an STD? People will get very defensive about it.
What do I look like, a hoe?
And yeah, so there's the stigma's still there. It may be getting better and people are getting more educated,
Well,
but
I think that's part of it is people think if you have an STD, it means you just like sleep with a lot of random people.
yeah.
Which is
Dude.
crazy because the one person in my friend group that ever got HIV, she had only had 2 partners her whole life. And she got HPV. And the rest of the
You
people...
said HIV the
Oh,
first
sorry, I
time.
meant
I was
HPV.
really confused
No.
because I know what friend you're talking
No.
about, and I was like, "Oh my god!"
No, HPV. But most people in our friend circle had more than 2 partners, and they somehow tested clean. But this one person gets HPV, once again, not HIV, and they've only been with 2 people. What kind of bullshit is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the sex roulette that just happens sometimes. Like, I don't know how I don't have an STD at this point.
Gross, Brad.
Well, I'm just saying.
See, there you go. You're part of the problem. You just called gross.
Oh,
See?
man, you're slut
I
shaming me
did.
again.
I am. I'm slut
And your
shaming.
daughter calls me a fuckboy.
Yeah, she does. It amuses me.
You are kind of a fuckboy.
Shut up. It has nothing to do with what you think.
Hashtag
It's a
not all
comment-
Brads.
It's
a
comment on his haircut.
It's commentary on my haircut.
She told me I had a fuckboy haircut, too.
You do.
Okay, well, you're the one that gave me this haircut.
Gross.
But no, that is the initial reaction when I find out someone has slept with a lot of people, which is just bullshit because I don't care how many people someone. Not really.
Yeah.
So why is it the initial thing I say
It's like
when
a brainwashed
and then I have to
thing.
think about it in my brain and go, "Don't be a bigot."
You're indoctrinated into it. It's just
Yeah.
it becomes reflex at a certain point.
Yeah.
man, I'm glad we just drew that bigotry out of you
I do
in
that
the show.
on the internet sometimes when I'll see a post.
But it's a good
And I'll
example
go,
of people that say like stigmatizing things or think things like that. They're not necessarily bad people. Like you're
They've
not a
been
bad person, and
brainwashed.
Sure.
you don't even think that way. But still, your knee jerk reaction was to say something like that, even though it was kind of in jest.
Mm-hmm.
But still, it's a good point to exactly what we're talking about. So, and it's hard to see that when you're the person being stigmatized, when somebody's like in your face or talking to you about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to step out of that and realize that the other person may not necessarily be bad. They may just not be educated, or they may just not be putting their best foot forward at that particular time because they're kind of
And they could be
stuck in
doing
that
that
cycle.
knee-jerk reaction, and then later on go, "Crap, I didn't really actually mean it that way."
but it's all about reactions. Like if
Yeah.
you react poorly, they're going to become defensive and they're going to stand by.
Mm-hmm.
And this has been multiple threads in some of the poly groups I'm in where they say, would you let one of your partners be with somebody if you knew that person had an STD?
Mm-hmm.
And no.
I'm like, well, would I want to suffer with the STD if it should pass on to me? And if the answer is I won't actually mind the STD, sure, whatever. But if
The
worst
question
comes to
should
worst,
be, what if you were the person with it? Would you want no one to ever sleep with you again?
yeah, that's why they have those dating sites where they specifically match people up on their STDs so that they can't spread them. That's a real thing. Where they're like,
Well,
if you're
that's
HIV
like-
Except you can
positive,
spread different types of the same
Yeah,
HPV.
I don't
but they're
know,
like,
You
but
get multiple types of
that's my
HPV.
favorite part of Dallas Buyers Club is he finds out that other chick has got AIDS and he's like, hey, come back here. And he's just railing her the rest of the movie. And they're like, what the hell? He's like, no, it's cool. She's got AIDS.
Catherine says, well, I got pregnant the first time out, and my friend at the time was having a lot of sex. And no baby. I guess the stars were aligned.
She's confusing stars with sperm.
the sperms were alive.
I don't know. I was using a condom when I get pregnant. So there's that. The first time.
Antihistamines will cancel out birth control.
I wasn't taking antihistamines. And I was like using condoms. I don't think antihistamines cancel out condoms.
I don't know.
Were you using oil lube?
Yeah.
No, and I was using
hand lotion will-
non-latex condoms because I'm allergic
Man,
to latex.
speaking of stigmatization, I remember in my sex ed class or whatever, they were like talking about lubes and condoms or whatever, and they're like, and you can't use hand lotion. Anybody want to guess why? And I was like, because it'll dissolve latex. And everybody's just like, how does he know that? They're like,
I
oh.
might have experience with it.
Oh, it was really funny. I went in for my EMT final when I was 18, and one of the finals is like a practical. So you have someone pretend to be sick, and then you have to run the exam on them. And the first thing we did was me and my group go into this room, and there's a chick, and she's in anaphylactic shock. And her boyfriend says, well, we were having sex, and I was like, latex allergy, and everyone. I was like, I might have a latex allergy.
It's fine. It's
Don't
fine.
worry about it.
Don't ask any further questions.
All those looks I got. Like, well,
Guess how I found out that people can be biologically allergic to sperm. Certain people's
you
sperm.
can. Yes.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's more awkward to figure it out in the doctor's office. Why does she have a rash here and here and here?
Stop it.
Oh,
And another thing that bothers me is the way doctors treat STD testing, or at least in my doctors, and like the HPV shot. Because I went in and I was like, okay, it's been a year. I'd like to do my testing, and I want that HPV shot. And he went, well, you're married.
oh yeah.
I was like, you know what? My private life's none of your business.
Yeah.
And I don't know what he does on his free time, so why don't you just do it?
Trust him 100%.
Why don't you just do the thing? But you're in a committed relationship. You know what? Why don't you just do it?
Don't make me go to Walgreens, you bastard.
Just do the thing. Is it gonna hurt you?
Well, we already know how doctors treat women that want any kind of medical anything to do with their girl bits. That's just you. Are you sure?
I don't understand.
Of course you
They're
do.
Please explain.
I'm a
girl
man.
bits.
I don't understand why they can't just, fix your lady problems.
Yeah, could you just take care of that at home? We don't want to talk about it though.
Catherine says she didn't know people could be allergic to sperm. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a thing.
Oh yeah, that's a thing.
I first saw that on one of those medical shows I used to watch, and I was like, really?
What?
But people can be allergic to water, so why not?
The sun.
You can be allergic to anything.
True.
I don't know. Not to be gross, I was married before we figured that out because up to a certain point, we had always used protection because we weren't trying to have any kids or whatever. And then after a certain point, it was like, well, that's fucking over. So And then we were like, oh, God, no, what's happening?
The first time I had a reaction to latex, I thought I had an STD for a good solid month.
Yeah.
And I was too scared to say anything to anybody because my parents were kind of weird about that sort of stuff. So I just kept it secret. And one day I went to the hospital and put on a latex glove and I got a rash and I was gleeful. I was like, oh, thank God. Oh, because, I mean, like I said, the only sex ed I'd had was sex is bad, don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
You'll get gross stuff. And I'd really hoped when Caitlin came home and started talking about sex ed that they were doing like completely comprehensive sex ed, and it is more comprehensive, but not by enough.
Yeah. Definitely needs to improve.
And I worry about the kids whose parents aren't willing to discuss that stuff with them. And I understand why it's awkward. I really do.
But you gotta.
Well, I like your advice to Caitlin that you gave recently. If
Not
it's,
the talkies advice. Okay, the other
What?
advice.
No, I do. I like
The
that one
talkies.
too. No, if you're not comfortable talking about it,
You shouldn't be
then
doing
you
it.
shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
That's what I keep telling her because
Shit, I'm not comfortable talking about it now. Maybe I shouldn't be.
probably
doing
not.
it.
If you are not willing to have a very blunt conversation with a future sex partner, should you really be having sex with them? Because what's going to happen when something goes wrong?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just married the last one, so.
So we were also going to talk about erectile dysfunction and other
No, we're not.
sex-related diseases.
We'll talk about the other sex-related diseases.
Why can't we talk about erectile dysfunction? You're making the stigma worse.
Good.
It is a medical condition that needs to be treated.
Most men, especially if they're circumcised, will eventually suffer from some form of erectile dysfunction.
Yeah. It's just a thing. It doesn't need to be embarrassing. We all poop. There.
On your erectile dysfunction?
No, I'm saying
Yes.
we all poop. It's a natural part of the body process.
Sometimes your penis might not work.
Sometimes your penis won't work.
No, yeah, that was one of the main things with the antidepressants.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't embarrassed about it, though. I was just like, hey, well, this is over.
Why is it? Because I know people who've been on like antipsychotics that they could get erect, but they couldn't finish.
Yeah, that's the
So-
main problem with antidepressants is they can become erect, but they can't orgasm. And that works for girls, too,
Yeah.
where you just can't. And I know a lot of dudes that have been embarrassed by that.
Mm-hmm.
Allie said you got ED, B-Rad? Is that why you don't want to talk?
B-rad.
No, I don't have ED.
B-rad.
I can get it up right now.
Watch me.
Is that technically erectile dysfunction if you can get it up but can't finish?
No,
No.
it's called something. It's like dysfunctional ejaculatory.
Was it lowering your
dis-
testosterone level is what Catherine said. No, it numbs, well, at least for me when I'm on antidepressants, it numbs sensation.
Yeah. Like
So,
how it's something about being inside a cotton swab. You don't feel
So,
anything.
okay, so I don't have ED, but what I do have is very, very low testosterone, which makes my libido bottom out. I just, like, don't want to as much as I should. Like, mentally I do. Like, all the time, I'm like, yeah,
And then
giggity,
physically,
giggity,
you're like,
let's do
"Ugh."
it, yeah.
Okay, Quagmire.
But then, you know, when it gets there, I'm like, I don't know, man. It's
It's a lot of trouble, a lot of effort. Don't really
fucking
want
tired.
Or like when I was off my hormones, the whole thought of that made me nauseous.
to. Yeah.
Like it wasn't just I didn't want to do it, it was an aversion. Like Steven would come home and be like, hey, and he kind of, I'm like, no,
Like, no.
gross, do not touch me. You go over there.
Yeah.
And I felt bad because I told him, don't stop asking.
Mm-hmm.
But it gets to a point where I feel bad because I'm always, and it's not him making me feel bad. I really feel like that's enforced societal guilt.
Mm-hmm.
But it's because he said, I hope I'm not the one making you feel guilty about this because that's not my intent. You told me not to
No,
stop
that was
asking.
being raised real religious. And
I was like, no, it's not you making me feel bad. It's my own brain.
Mm-hmm.
So Netflix and chill becomes Netflix and snacks. That happened about 3 years into the marriage. That had nothing to do with the hormones. That
Yeah.
was just, I think having kids had a lot to do with that.
No, I don't want to stigmatize like guy problems or whatever. My big issue is my mom's watching this podcast.
I feel like guy problems can be more embarrassing because it's more visible.
yeah.
And they have more stigma placed on that.
And they can't really fake it the way that girls can.
Girls go into sex pretty often not expecting it to be like that.
And they can lay there and fake it all they want, but if a dude can't get erect or he can't, it's pretty obvious.
It's visible. And I feel like there's a lot of people that would rag on that.
Yeah.
If not to him, then probably to their friends.
I also feel like women communicate with each other more about stuff like that than guys do. Like
Maybe we do, maybe we don't.
I don't know, but we're not sitting at the cigar lounge being like, "Yeah, I was with Becky last night. Totally couldn't get it up." Yeah, that's cool, bro. That happens.
Really, you're never sitting at the bar and you're like, I was with Becky last night and she finished like 17 times. World record.
Yeah.
We actually don't do that as
Really?
much as you think.
Oh,
Yeah.
y'all are boring.
I mean, I do, but
I don't understand.
Yeah, dudes don't really talk to each other about that sort of thing. It's kind of, I guess, the same with the mental health things. You guys don't really talk about it, but that's kind of a societal thing too.
mostly we get together and lie.
Toxic
Yeah.
masculinity.
Toxic masculinity of society has made it where you're unable to discuss real things because instead you're like, oh, it's great.
Julie says it's okay. She's not listening to you. She's plugging her ears every time you
Oh,
talk.
okay, that's fine.
Catherine
what I do,
says, I got told by my old chief nursing officer that women gave it easy because they just had to lay there. Awkward.
Awkward. Like, I'm just gonna...
I think that person doesn't know how to do it right.
Or they're just really old, and I assume women of that generation weren't expected to
Participate
because
just shut your mouth and lay
it
there.
was assumed women didn't like sex for a real. That's really actually still a common assumption.
Yeah.
Like you watching Big Mouth, and they're like, she's like, girls want to have sex too, and all the guys' heads explode.
The girls are horny too. What? Yeah.
Allie says, I talk about it. Learn to have absolutely no shame whatsoever. Allie, you have too little shame.
No shame.
You have no shame.
Yeah, a
and
little
it
stigma.
bothers
A
me.
little stigma would go a long way with
Yeah.
her. Just a little. No, when guys get together, like there's always the kind of trope about like the locker room talk sort of thing. Well, I mean, I know Trump does it obviously, but that's not as common as you would think.
I've been in a guy's locker room, and mostly they were all just looking down and hurriedly getting dressed.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, they're trying not to be gay. At the same time, the only thing they're talking about is accusing everybody else of being gay.
Yeah.
You're like, dude, you're gay. And it's like,
Toxic
listen, Tom, you have a 4-inch wang. I've seen it. It's okay.
Fine. Calm down. I don't want to suck it.
What happens if you're showering with a bunch of dudes and you get an accidental boner?
You
Oh
hide
my
that.
God! Why would you talk about
No,
that?
I'm just surely all dudes would understand that sometimes that just happens.
No.
Well, no, you would think that,
Not in-
but then
not
at the
there.
same time, but when you're in middle school and that one kid has to stand up and walk to the front of the class and they've got an erection, everyone points and laughs, even though they've probably all got erections too, because middle school boys just randomly get erections.
If you point
so-
somebody else's erection out, they're
It
not
gets
looking.
more erect?
No, they're not looking at your erection.
Yeah.
That's
you're like ha ha ha, ha and you
Ah,
just hide yours.
look at Timmy's erection.
Yeah.
Catherine says lots of women don't talk about the sex anxiety that they have with their partner, which sucks because they also aren't enjoying it.
Yeah.
Which I don't get. I've always told Steven everything. Maybe
kinda
it's because
half
we've
and
been
half.
together since I was 18.
Yeah. Like
Um,
I don't fake anything, but at the same time, he doesn't know how uncomfortable sex makes me just in
I
general.
feel how uncomfortably
So-
easy I'm sharing all this, but there was some kind of. I feel like my transition from like adolescence is the wrong word. I don't know, between whatever's between adolescence and like true adulthood, but I noticed like this weird transition like as an adult where I could like conversate about like sex like while sexing and stuff. Like it was different.
Yeah.
It wasn't, there wasn't this like pressure of like you couldn't laugh or whatever. Like there's weird noises and stuff like that.
I'm
And
a
someone
firm
might fart,
believer,
it's
and
fine.
it should be funny.
It should be.
yeah, and
It's funny.
like I went from just like trying to be like cool or whatever
I can't imagine you being cool. I'm
to
sorry.
like where I can like joke with the person I'm with, or like it's funny. It's stuff goes
There's weird sounds.
stuff
there's
goes
weird
wrong.
smells.
It does. It's not like the
It's fine.
movies. Like you don't just like roll
Oh,
over
yeah, I
and
was
then the
having-
lights go
I
down.
was
It's like
trying
no,
to-
you got to go find a shame towel.
I have serious anxiety about writing sex scenes into books because I hate the trope of, and then they fell asleep in each other's arms.
Yeah.
It's like, no, she went to
She
the bathroom,
showered, and
he
she
cleaned
peed.
off with the shame shirt that could stand up at its own.
He
at
went
this
out for a
point.
cigarette.
And you know what? That stuff should definitely be destigmatized because I'm embarrassed with that crap now because of the way movies portray sex and all that.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, that stuff's important. That's how you get yeast infections
Or
and
UTIs.
and like stuck to the bed the next morning and
Yeah.
like horrible
Or
things.
as one guy I know, how you wake up with a cat licking you and it hurts. Julie, your comment, I would have to say, I wonder if that's not hormonal.
What's up?
Oh, she used to like sex. Now not so more.
Oh.
But medicated and older.
I don't like sex anymore either, but that's because
Isn't
of
that
my
menopause?
mental.
Allie says the only time I ever got anxious about sex was when I couldn't tell my partner how much it was hurting me to have sex, but I told him. Yeah, that's my problem is I don't want to make them feel bad because it's not their fault.
Yeah, it's not because you're unskilled. It just
It
hurts.
hurts. You
So-
can't help that you have a chronic illness that's...
And it also means that you don't want to keep doing it at certain times, like you know what I mean?
And if it hurts, like I said, it doesn't mean you want to completely stop having sex. Maybe sometimes it's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the time it's not going to be, and you really have to be willing to say that. I don't think any guy would want you, at least none of the guys that any of my friends would date, would want you suffering in silence. I think they'd want to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they would want to possibly work on finding a solution.
Yeah, like adjust
if-
your position or try to go slower.
if anything,
whatever.
or a non-sex solution. Like, okay,
Yeah.
we don't do vaginal sex anymore.
We just do it in the
That's
butt.
another generational thing I've noticed is what is considered sex. And apparently, I was going through as a Time article about how millennials aren't having sex anymore. And a bunch of the responses are, we are having sex. It's just not always penetrative
Yeah.
intercourse. There's other things to do.
Yeah.
You don't
And
always
sometimes
have to,
it's way more enjoyable than the penetrative one.
because it's tied into the whole losing your virginity thing. How they seem to think that if you're a lesbian or you're gay, you can't ever lose your virginity because
Yeah.
it's not traditional.
Sex.
It's not traditional intercourse, which is not true. So the end of the article basically summed up that, oh God, the worst part of it was this guy he was talking about. He had this girl over. And they had laid on the couch together, cuddling until 5 the next morning, just talking about their hopes and their dreams and their lives. And all the boomer dudes were like, well, why didn't you have sex with her? And he was like, well, I was enjoying
Just hanging out
conversing with her. And they were like, you fag. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, God, guys.
Yeah.
Y'all really aren't making a good case for your entire generation
Yeah.
right now. Catherine says it's more like the brain won't shut off, so you're worried about the noises you're making and the body fat fart noises. You can't enjoy anything else. My head completely turns off most of the time because I've been embarrassed before about the noises. Another interesting
I'm ready to
thing
move on to a new stigma, by
is-
the way.
is
Are you uncomfortable?
Yeah, well,
okay. Well, what do you want to
Why?
talk about then?
I don't know anything
I
else.
don't understand. Is this a stigma in itself of just people talking about sex as something that
I just feel really sweaty. I got like the flop sweat going on over here.
I don't understand? There shouldn't be a stigma around talking about.
I feel a weird heat.
No one should probably have sex with you then.
Yeah.
Because if you're too scared to talk
You're
about
too
it.
immature to talk.
You know,
about
I'm
sex,
fine.
so.
I'm fine talking about it. But like we're live. It's weird.
It's not.
I don't know. It wasn't so bad in my head when we were talking about it earlier.
I don't
Back to
understand.
erectile dysfunction.
God.
Okay, so
Ah.
if we're not talking about stigma, just in general around sex, apparently that's still a thing. I can't remember what any other things were. I think we went through the list
Yeah,
that
I
we
think
had.
we did.
Oh,
I was gonna mention a disease I know about. I forget who I knew that had it, and it's, if I pronounce it correctly, if I can find my Google link
Correctly. Erectly.
Vaginismus. And that's where the muscle around the vagina contracts so that you can't have intercourse, or it's super painful. And there's like no treatment for it. And
sucks.
obviously it's pretty stigmatized, or at least unknown, because no one I know has ever heard of it.
Yeah, I could see how that would be stigmatized. Well, she's just being a prude.
Or
She
she's
won't
cold,
put out.
she's
or-
frigid.
Yeah. Why won't she ever have sex with me? What am I doing?
I always wonder why women won't have sex with me. Because
you're
I'm
an
awesome.
asshole.
Because they
Huh?
treat it.
What? No.
They treat it psychologically as a fear of painful sex, but it has a physiological root. So it's like they're assuming that she is
It's
just,
just making
frigid.
She's hysterical. She just needs a good finger bang. And
Yeah, because that's what they used to do to chicks. She's hysterical. Send her to the asylum. Electrocute her.
Electrocute her. You all right over there?
said finger bang.
Oh my God, Brad.
Should I have said diddle instead? That seems a little.
No, it just every time I hear like finger bang or something like that, I think of there's that dessert at Sonic called the Butterfinger Blast. And I can't I was just like, who named this?
Finger blasted.
looking on here, it doesn't say that they use Valium or any other muscle relaxers or anxiety meds for it, but they do use Botox injections.
I thought Botox like it made it not as stretchy. So
I think. Oh, but it also
It atrophies muscle.
It deadens the feeling a little. Ooh, God, that's a horrible treatment for that.
yeah.
And lidocaine.
Well, I guess not feeling anything
Would
as
be better
opposed to
than
pain.
pain.
Yeah.
Lidocaine is another experimental.
And I
option.
guess some of your internal stuff still.
I don't know. Do they feel it all the way through, or is it
It's just the external muscle.
Oh,
Yeah, I guess.
I guess if you numbed the outside, you'd still feel it on the inside.
I guess we would really need to talk to somebody that that had it and was willing to
Yeah.
talk about like that versus.
That sounds kind of sucky, though. I wouldn't want to have that.
Yeah, but
I don't know. You've never hurt that way before, so
Yeah.
maybe.
And there's a lot of articles that have been popping out lately about women with low sex drive, which it's interesting they're noticing that now.
Yeah.
That before it was just like,
I didn't know women
do
had
it
a sex drive.
anyway.
Yeah. You need to stop talking and thinking. Quit trying to be people. Just lay there and have my baby.
Who cares if you want it?
Yeah. It's not your choice. It's my choice.
Who's the doctor? Louis C.K.?
Yeah, Valium works on stenosis of the penis. So I'm gonna have to do some more research on that because that's interesting. I wonder why they aren't using more muscle relaxers
Yeah.
or something like that.
And if they think that it's just a mental thing about fear of it, they would use anxiety medicine, I would think. But if they're not, then
yeah,
they probably don't know what the...
A lot of things in women's health they still just don't seem to know or care to know.
Yeah, and it's mostly just kind of throwing stuff at a dartboard and seeing what sticks and going, yeah, that's what she's got, and this is how we fix it. And they don't actually care.
That's pretty much how all medicine works now.
Yeah.
That might be some of the problem.
Yeah.
Can you think of any more stigmatized?
Other than what we've talked about, not really.
Just Magic the Gathering.
That's... No.
Would not want a shot in my hoo-ha. Yeah, no joke, man.
just... Yeah.
Okay, so, but yet it's okay to just suggest I get a vasectomy like every 10 minutes.
No, Emilio, I didn't cut my hair. Brad cut it.
What?
Yes, I
Did
cut my
Sarah
hair.
cut her hair?
Yeah, it's very short. Let's
Now
not
we've
talk about it.
all got short hair.
Ugh.
Twinsies.
Actually, I have longer hair than Sarah.
Yeah, it's pretty short.
I haven't seen yours. I've been wearing a hat all day.
Okay, I'll show you later.
Yeah, his is longer than mine.
Yeah.
Makes sense that they use it for vagina issues like that. Yeah, it would if they're using it for penis issues.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but we talked about like what all this, so how
I
did,
think that was just mumbling.
We just talking about this.
we've talked about all the different stigmas, but we haven't touched so much on like how
The
to beat it
solution?
or fix it. Yeah, like what's the solution?
Education.
What's our commentary on it? Like we've brought it to everybody's attention. Hey, just because you have an STD doesn't mean you're dirty or whatever. Other than just hey, listen to this podcast.
My
and
way
you're
to
fucking
review
awesome.
to get rid of stigma is always communication.
Communication,
Education. Yeah.
Well, where do you get stuff like that? Like I
It needs to stop being passed down from family members who said that this is a problem
It's-
and then it
Here's
passes
a-
to you.
I know we
really
need more
cool
of it,
thing-
but where do we find it now?
So there's a really
currently?
cool thing called Google Scholarly.
Mm-hmm.
You get on Google and you type certain stuff in and it will bring you to peer-reviewed scholarly articles, not anti-vax, because if you Google vaccines right now, it's going to give you a load of anti-vax stuff. You type in scholarly or peer-reviewed, you might get actual science-based articles. So it's okay to use the internet. It's not okay to use Wikipedia.
And it's not okay to just click on the first Google result and then go, okay, that's all I need to know. Like, read through a few.
Hey, that's how I live my life, man.
I don't like it when people go research something by
Um,
clicking on one link. You need to go
so,
click on like 100 links.
But we kind of touched on a thing where it's like we kind of feel like parents should be educating their kids about study. We don't.
Mm-hmm.
But if the parents aren't educated,
Yeah, if the
this is
parents
just
aren't
a-
educated. So I mean, do you think? So what's your thoughts on this? Is it we need better like classes and education on things like this in school, or do parents need to be held to a higher? I mean,
Both.
I understand it's both, but
I would say from this point, we need to educate the current generation and the one after so that they can continue educating. I think it's too late for people that are older now because they refuse to listen
too
to
late, Mom.
logic.
It's
I don't
totally
think
too
it's
late.
too late for all people in that
No,
generation. I think a lot of
but
them are willing to learn, but as a majority,
they won't listen to reason or logic, and they won't change their stance on anything, even if they have a bunch of proof. So I have given up on older people. I'm not going to teach them anything. Instead, I'm going to try to teach this
Woo! Let's
generation.
stigmatize old people.
And the
Old people suck. Hashtag 2019.
Hashtag boomers suck.
it's not that all boomers suck. It just seems like more of their generation is very willing to just believe the things they've always believed.
All successful boomers suck.
Hashtag all boomers suck.
Hashtag all boomers
Okay,
suck.
all boomers that I know
I
personally suck.
I really think we need both, though. I think we need classes in school, and I think parents do need to be held to a higher standard. Like the parents that kicked my daughter out of their house for using the word penis instead of whatever silly cutesy name they were using for it.
Hoo-ha.
Wee-wee.
The wiener.
We had to use
Wee-wee.
pee-pee when we were
It's
growing
so
up.
stupid. The kids need to know the proper terms.
Mm-hmm. But they're
I-
not going to change what they've decided they're going to teach their children, and you can't change their parenting style. This is how I teach my kid.
Well, and I didn't mind my kids calling it another name as long as they knew
What
the
it
name.
was.
Yeah, parents need to be held. Catherine says parents need to be held to a higher standard. Period. They rely on the schools entirely too much.
But who sets that standard? That's where you run into like some of these lines that are a little tough. Who sets that freaking standard? What are you?
Oh no, I was talking about Julie's comment. You're a cool boomer. You're okay.
Yeah, you're fine.
Yeah. And my mom's good to talk to about this stuff, but just some people, man.
My mom was okay talking about this stuff. She wasn't great, and my dad was awful at it, but
Oh, that question specifically directed at me. How would I feel talking to my mom about these things? Okay, so I did not talk to my parents about any of this shit growing up. I did not talk to my mom or my dad about sex, about mental health, any of that sort of thing. I was very, very lucky in that the environment that I grew up in, there was good information around me. Had I been in another scenario, though, I would have been completely fucked. That's why I'm a little bit understanding to people who aren't already educated, because these are topics that, like, I would never talk about these topics with my parents, really, especially with who my parents were, and they weren't. They would have talked to me about it. They weren't prude
Yeah,
or
it's
anything
weird
like that.
because my mom would have talked to me about it, but I just
and
didn't.
that wasn't the thing. But it was inherently embarrassing because of the peer pressure at school or whatever, because of the way everybody else's parents were. So it absolutely has to do with like your social situation or whatever. And it's a thing I didn't want to talk to my kids about, but we also had something very different happen in our generation that the generation before us did not have, and that was internet in everybody's house. So whereas my dad's generation had to go find Playboys,
go to the library to check out books.
yeah, stuff like that. It was, but, and I hate to say it, but, I just had porn directly piped straight into my room in like, dial up 28.8. But that's the thing, like,
Jesus.
but there was more education, and like I said, like I must have lucked out, because like I keep hearing all these horror stories about the sex ed. Like I had good sex ed in school. Like it wasn't as bad as like some of the stuff I've heard. So I didn't have a lot of those questions. So I never like really had to ask them, and I never, like with the sex stuff, I never had a hard time. I don't know if it was instilled on purpose or if it just by happenstance, but I never had a hard time talking to the opposite sex as an equal. Like that's like my friends are like, oh, how do you talk to girls and stuff like that, and it never
Like they're humans?
well it never like occurred to me like what the disconnect was, because I talk to everybody, at least when I first meet them, as if they're on an equal playing field to me. The thing that makes me judgmental is people's intelligence. You're either above me at the same level, or you're an idiot and I can't talk to you. But it had
harsh.
Well, I mean, really, seriously, like either I'm gonna be able to talk to you at the same level, or you're gonna be above me and I'm gonna feel like you're actually superior to me, but I want to like learn from you. And if you're a lot dumber than me and also kind of like an asshole, then I really don't have much use for you. But it has absolutely nothing to do with like what's in between your legs. So when I would talk to, like, most of my friends are females, and like it's a big joke, but it just turns out most of my friends are female because I can talk to them at a more level because females I guess tend to be more open, and I don't like being teased and shit like that's like I have my temper problem or whatever, and women just
Yet you hang out with me.
I
you
can
know
deal with
I'm
it more,
joking,
but
though.
I mean, when I was going to school, you know, I didn't have that kind of problem, like as opposed to like when I played football and shit, and we were in the locker room, and everybody's like arm wrestling around and calling each other gay and hitting each other with that shit bugged me. Like I didn't like it, like that, and I guess we call it toxic masculinity now, but that didn't resonate with. Those weren't the people I talked to, and all the people I talked to that I was friends with growing up, other than like my like 3 best friends were guys, but everybody else I hung out with was girls. But they were just talking about this shit like I wasn't even in the room, like they didn't care. And then like my other friends would be like, "Oh, how do you talk to all these girls, dude? You're a pimp, blah blah blah." I'm like, "No, dude, you know, I'm just like hanging out while they're talking about like makeup and watching Johnny Depp movies and shit. Like I don't understand what the deal is." So like, yeah, as far as talking about, I didn't have to talk to my parents about any of that crap because I already had like what the other side's perspective was on it, and it also helped I wasn't like ugly growing up. So like
I never talked to my parents about and it's weird because my mom worked labor and delivery when I was really little, so I got exposed to all the factual information about sex really young, the scientific stuff, but no one ever explained to me the other stuff. I knew how it worked functionally, but I was also taught that's something you don't do until you're married. So I was always too scared to even ask my parents about it because I thought they would assume I was having sex even when I wasn't, which is exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Probably because I went about it in such a shady way because I was too scared to just say it.
Yeah. I talked to my mom about a lot of it, even the things that I was terrified to tell her, like the fact that I also like girls, that sort of thing. I told her about that, and at first she was kind of iffy about it, and then she eventually was okay with it. But growing up, I didn't have a computer in my house till I was 16, so before that, it was just kind of relying on that. And I do recall one thing that my dad constantly cringes at, and that was when I was about 12 years old. And I was sitting at the dinner table with all 7 of us around the table, and I had just watched a movie, and in there they mentioned a hard-on. And I just looked over at my mom on the other end of the table and went, "What's a hard-on?" And they just dropped their forks like, fuck.
I remember the first time I asked what a boner was because I had just watched Revenge of the Nerds.
I never asked my parents that.
I
didn't know it was a sex thing. There's a line in Revenge of the Nerds where like, "Are we dreaming?" And Booker goes, "No, if we were dreaming, I'd have a boner."
Yeah, see,
and I didn't get the joke. So
I was watching
asked.
Now and Then, and she said something about a hard-on, and the main character went, "What's a hard-on?" And I was like, "Yeah, what is a hard-on?" And so...
Oh, God, I was 13 at a Dawson McAllister conference in Fort Worth, and that's a Christian conference, if y'all don't know. And he mentioned orgasms. He was like, sex isn't really worth the orgasms unless you're married. And he was like, if you don't know what that is, ask your parents. And I was like, oh, nope, that's a sex thing. Can't ask my parents.
Nope.
Guess I don't need to know that. But it's weird because Caitlin will say anything in front of me.
I was actually,
anyone.
I was
Caitlin
thinking
will
that during a
talk
lot of the discussion.
Anything about anything to anyone.
But you've set that up for her, and what
Yeah.
I've noticed is, for all the quirks your kid has, she is probably the most well-adjusted 13-year-old kid. Like she has no problem talking to other kids her age and stuff. Like she's got. Remember how I was pointing out somebody in the choir, and she's like, "How did you know?" I was like, "Because 13-year-olds don't have confidence or whatever." She has confidence. Like she,
she is very much who she is.
Yeah.
F everybody.
Sunday when we were all swimming or whatever, you know, I was jabbing at her or whatever. I was like, "Oh, if you want to talk like that, I can embarrass you in front of your friends." I don't care.
I think the reason she's like that is because you have removed the stigma from it, because you told her she could talk to you about anything, and if she didn't feel comfortable telling you, she could tell me, or she could tell Allie, she could tell anybody.
Yeah, she talks to me about mental health stuff.
Yeah, so
you know.
instead of feeling like she has to hide it and not talk about it, she knows that she can talk to anybody about anything and nobody will judge her on it.
I think it also helps that she's got a village raising her.
Yeah,
to just...
and Andrew's asking more questions too. He was super shy about that stuff, but he's starting to open up a little more. And I hope he does, because there's this phase guys go through where they kind of shut down, and I don't want him going through that.
Yeah.
He's a sensitive kid. I don't want him.
He talks about, like me and Steven are playing video games with him on the couch or whatever. He'll sit there and talk with it. Like he's come online recently, like where you can tell he's making memories now and like having a personality, and it's creepy because he can read things.
Yeah.
And
But the first time Caitlin asked me about sex, I had a complete mental breakdown.
Yeah.
Just because I did not know how to deal with that. And I ended up giving her all this stupid information she probably didn't need. And then having a panic attack in my room. It was pretty bad. But now, that's something I'd like all parents to do, is just talk to your kids. Because now when she gets some nasty text from a boy, because she's 13, and that's the thing that happens now, she brings it to me.
Yeah.
or shows you,
She knows she doesn't
it's
have to hide it.
It's not even in distress. It's she's like trolling him at this point
Yeah.
now.
And I've talked to her, she says she's not ready to be in that kind of relationship. And I'm glad that she's aware of that. And I really hope that all this work I've done results in, when she does become ready for something like that, her going, hey, this is a thing that's happening now.
Yeah.
She might not.
She might still feel
She might not want to talk
embarrassment.
about it, but she's probably not going to try to hide it. You know,
Yeah.
she's probably not going to be like, "Hey, guess what? I just,
Got laid."
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just lost my virginity." That's probably not going to happen. But when you kind of put two and two together,
Yeah.
it's going to be like, "Hey, are you sleeping with that?" And you're like, "Yeah." And it's not going to be this like.
She'll be like,
big
yeah, don't
hor-
worry. We were using safe.
I just
Horrible thing.
always felt guilty, even when I made out with a guy when I was 15.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want her ever feeling like that.
It's that Christian guilt that we
But
have.
Haiti says, my mom asked me
mom's English.
what cock meant while watching a movie together, and I had to explain it to her. Oh, I couldn't. I still can't. Like, even like my mom and me were gonna watch Game of Thrones. I was like, I can't watch that with you.
I got. So you remember Torchy's Tacos? I
Uh-huh.
love Torchy's Tacos, but the last time I went with my. What did I call him earlier? What was his name?
Rick.
Rick. So I
You
went
went
with
with your Rick?
Yeah, I went with Rick, and he was like, I love Torchy's Tacos, but I have a hard time coming in here now. And I'm like, why? He's like, well, I came here with my mom, and she ordered a Dirty Sanchez, and I couldn't stop laughing. And then I had to explain to her what a Dirty Sanchez was, and I was like, oh, God. And he's like, it's even worse because she used to be a nurse. And I'm like, oh, no.
Julie says my mom asked me how to give a blowjob. I was like, no.
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 Oh, that's like 2 generations of just like bad for me right now.
Allie says, unfortunately, the end result is that we learned that sex is supposed to hurt, which it's not. I was 30 years old when I learned it wasn't supposed to hurt the first time. Oh, I just told Caitlin that the other day. Were you in the car with me?
No.
And she said, so losing your virginity, does it hurt really bad? And I was like, listen, kid, it's not supposed to hurt. This is a myth.
If it hurts, you're
If he's
doing it wrong.
He's doing it wrong.
Doing it
Or
too rough.
she's doing it wrong. Whoever you're with, doing it wrong.
Well, okay, so here's the deal. Why do I know these things? Why am I
Adam
saying,
ruins everything.
Why am I saying this shit out loud? Like this is not my MO. But
We're destigmatizing, Red.
Yeah.
Destigmatize.
the reason it usually ends up hurting the first time is because the dude's really nervous because it's usually his first time too, and he doesn't understand
what
what
he's doing.
foreplay is.
Yeah,
that
he just
and
shoves it in there.
anxiety, once again.
Yeah.
And also, your parents are probably in the other room, and you're like, "Be quiet, we
Yeah.
gotta get this
Or if
done."
you're me, there's a guy at the lake peeking through the bushes at you.
Fisherman. Have you told Caitlin that? I told you.
I'm not telling her that story.
I'm gonna tell Caitlin that
No.
story.
She
She
can
needs.
watch this
she
podcast
needs to know.
and be aware.
See, when I lost my virginity,
Tell the
his
story.
dad was downstairs, but he wasn't peeking at us.
Are we all gonna
bushes.
tell our first time
Yes,
stories?
we are.
Is
You
that-
go.
I have to go.
Yeah, you have to go.
Oh my god.
Look away, Julie.
I have to. So many of my friends are still friends with me. Or so many of my exes. So
Just call them number one.
patient 0. So, like, we had like skipped school, and we were like watching TV or whatever, and we were like, all right, yeah, this is it, because she had bought condoms, and I was like, oh, awesome, because I was still too much of a puss to go buy them myself at the tender age of.
Don't worry about the age, because
Yeah.
I'm not saying mine.
Okay. Yeah, I would.
Tender age before we.
I don't know what I
should've.
thought. I think I thought like if I bought condoms at that age, an alarm would go off and they would call my parents.
thought that too.
I'm not sure.
I was like, if I buy condoms, someone from the church will see me.
I was worried that it was like illegal, like they could, because it was like next to the cigarettes and you had to ask for them behind the counter.
Oh, no.
You have to be 16 to buy these.
Because the only thing next to us was like the stop and go or whatever, and so like everybody got
named.
so. Anyway, she had those, and we were skipping school or whatever, And for whatever reason, we went like in her brother's room, and it went horrible or whatever, and not a very long time. And the next thing I know, there's just this like police banging on the door thing. I'm like, oh my God. And we didn't realize
We have you now.
we didn't realize her brother was home, so he was like trying to shoot me with a pellet gun because he knew what was going on. We're like trying to pretend that's not what was going on. He's like, the fuck do you think I think's going on in there? Whatever. And yeah, it was very stressful. That was probably the most stressful thing I've been through. It was not enjoyable at all.
Yeah.
I give props to the guy who I had my first time with, because we'd been seeing each other for like a while at that point, and we'd been friends since we were little, like in junior high together. So we had actually talked about it a lot before it happened, and we'd been dating for a long time. And he was a really good guy. I'm still friends with him, really good guy. But we had gone out to the lake because he was kind of a wuss, like you're talking about. This was not a thing he was gonna do. We went to the lake, and it was February, and I talked him into skinny dipping. And we had a sleeping bag, and I was like, hey, you know, the easiest way to warm up is to get in the sleeping bag with
You
somebody else.
Brokeback Mountained him, is what you did.
So, whatever, things are going fine. And I look up, and there's just a dude with a fucking fishing pole and, like, one of the vests and this stupid hat just...
In the bushes.
So we just got real still, like he didn't know what was happening.
If we get still, he won't know what we're doing.
Oh my God, it was traumatizing. And he eventually left, and we were like, okay, time to go home now.
God.
Let's never talk about this again.
I've never heard one good first time story. It's
Yeah.
always horrible.
No,
Mine was with Boomerang.
my first time was fine. I think because I'd known him for so long and we had been friends for so long.
Made it a little bit easier.
Yeah, and because we both talked about it a lot before it happened. I think part of that was because we were so nervous.
Yeah.
Because neither of us had ever been in a relationship like that before. So I think that was really helpful.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, your dad's watching.
Fuck off. Not funny. I didn't say how old I was. I might have been 20.
Yeah.
Except I was already knocked up at 20. So
Allie
probably
said
not.
she wants a do-over, but to be fair, she told him to hurry up. She had band practice in an hour.
I want to do over too. I did not expect a Boomerang.
I am one of the few people I know who's completely okay with the first time.
Mine didn't really hurt. It was just really confusing because well,
Maybe you were doing it
no,
wrong.
I don't know. We were both virgins when we got together, and he didn't know what he was doing. I didn't know what I was doing. We didn't even know how to kiss each other properly, and then there was no foreplay involved, and he just whips it out, and it's bent at a 90-degree angle, and I was like, that is not what that is supposed to look like. I am sure of this.
Wait, now who's stigmatizing who?
No, something's wrong with that. And and then, you know, it was like the pressure of trying to get him to straighten it out so that it would go in, because he had to like bend it straight. So
That
that's what
sounds
I'm
terrible.
saying.
Oh my god!
Yeah, and then
Can we just end this?
no, wait, I have to finish the story. So, you know, I kept doing that thing that you're not supposed to ask and asking, is it in yet? And so that immediately
Play her off, Johnny.
so that immediately made him just, you know, not want to go anymore. And then his dad came home and he like shoved me into his bathroom and hid me behind the shower curtain. And his dad came up and was like, "You're an adult now. You can do whatever you want, but make sure that your mom doesn't see her." And I was like, he knows I'm in here. And he just snuck me downstairs out the back door and just outside. I didn't have a ride home. I was just standing out on the sidewalk like, what do I do?
I don't know. My mom walked in around about the third time that was happening, and I slammed the door, and I was like, "I'm hiding your Christmas present in the floor." She's like, "It's March." Like,
It's a birthday present.
I hit that door so hard. Oh my god.
First times are hilarious.
I'm pretty sure that traumatized everyone in my house. But it's just the awkwardness.
Yeah.
Of, especially if no one knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
Which is the way it should be.
Yeah.
That's the way it should be. Everyone should be awkward.
Because even if you have seen it and you've heard stories and stuff, actually doing it yourself, you still don't know what you're doing.
Well, they never show that part in the
Yeah.
movie
I
or whatever.
think
They
it
show
also
everything.
helped me that I had all the technical knowledge from like hanging out in L&D with my mom.
Mhm.
And oh god, what the first time she explained sex to me was Look Who's Talking, the movie where it shows the sperm and the egg, and I was like, "What's that?" And she just laid it all out in medical detail, and I was like 4 and horrified. Like,
Mom.
this is awful. But I think the technical knowledge was helpful.
Yeah, my mom explained it to me in technical terms too.
But I've also made sure to remind Caitlin that there is an emotional component. Some people don't have one. I am very aware that some people can just have sex without it meaning anything. But for a lot of people, I think especially at that age when your hormones are running rampant and you get that oxytocin production, that they are going to have emotions over it, and they need to know that. And that's not me.
I think that's what cripples most people for sex later on, is because we're still very much in those stages during our first experiences with that. And so there's always you're Pavloved into it. There is always an emotional connection to it, as opposed to people that do wait till like later and have more like control over their feelings and things like that. Possibly.
Yeah, I just really want, like I told Caitlin, I'm not trying to discourage her when I say stuff like that. I just want her to be very aware that these are things that can happen. Allie says, my first guy was uncircumcised. He stigmatized the wieners. Yes, circumcision is evil. But that's another podcast.
Yeah. I was discussing this with Aaron last night.
But I don't think we have anything else.
Yeah, so
after that conversation, I'm going to go blow my brains out in the back room.
So yeah, there's the stigmatized mental illness and sex
anything
stuff
involving sex.
Yeah,
Dear
anything
God.
involving sex and
obviously
diseases
we're all
and-
still stigmatizing it.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, because apparently I'm gross.
You are a little, hon.
but anyway, thank you for joining us for this episode, and again, happy Pride Month, everyone.
Yes,
I
happy
love all
Pride.
of you, and I hope you have a great but especially this month, because own it. But thanks for watching. We'll see you whenever we see you again.
Probably next week on Thursday.
We'll try. So bye, guys.